Hi everyone, I'm Kevin Nelson. Here's a look at what's going on this week in the news. We begin with news from around the country. On October 18th, a federal judge had ruled that a teen immigrant in the country illegally and under federal custody in a shelter in Brownsville, Texas, had the right to get an abortion. But on October 20th, a federal appeals court for the District of Columbia Circuit declined to order the federal government to allow the pregnant teenager to get the abortion. Instead, the court gave the Department of Health and Human Services until October 31st to find a sponsor to take custody of the teenager. Lawyers for the American Civil Liberties Union, which represents the teen known as Jane Doe, said they were disappointed with the appeals court ruling. They have filed a class action lawsuit arguing that the government's policy against allowing abortions for women in its custody is unconstitutional. In a statement commending federal and Texas state officials for defending the life of an innocent unborn child, the bishops of Texas said no one, the government, private individuals, or organizations should be forced to be complicit in abortion. They pointed out that the Catholic Church in Texas has provided assistance and shelter to unaccompanied immigrant minors, refugees, and pregnant mothers for decades. The bishops also offered prayers for the mother and her unborn child. Looking at news from the Vatican, in his homily at Mass in the Domus Sanctae Marthae this past Monday, Pope Francis said the day's Gospel's reading of the parable of the rich man who stores up treasure for himself isn't a fairy tale that Jesus invented. It's today's reality. The Pope said thousands of starving children around the world today are innocent victims sacrificed upon the altar of the god of money.
In his homily at Casa Santa Marta, Pope Francis spoke about those enslaved to money. He criticized those who accumulate money at the expense of the weak.
Questa idolatria fa morire di fame tanta gente. Pensiamo soltanto un caso, a 200.000 bambini Rohingya nel campo profughi. Lì ci sono 800.000 persone. 200.000 sono bambini. Appena hanno da mangiare, malnutriti, senza medicine. Anche oggi succede questo.
That's why the Pope asked Christians to pray for God to touch the hearts of those who worship the god of money.
More news now from around the country. The U.S. Supreme Court announced last week that it would not hear an appeal in the case of a removal of 10 Commandments display outside City Hall in Bloomfield, New Mexico. This allows the lower court ruling to stand that said Bloomfield City Hall must remove the outdoor display because it violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. The Alliance Defending Freedom, representing the city of Bloomfield, said the Supreme Court's dismissal of the case gives anti-religion advocates a license to challenge any monument that they see and offends them. The New Mexico chapter of the American Civil Liberties Union had filed a lawsuit against the city over the display on behalf of 2 residents of the city who took issue with the 10 Commandments on government property. Back to the Vatican we go. The leader of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church announced this year's 2 winners of an award they give to those involved in working toward mutual forgiveness between Ukraine and Poland. The announcement was made at the Vatican, and Rome Reports was there.
After World War II, Europe freed itself from its past through forgiveness and the reconciliation of countries, such as France with Germany, Germany with Poland, or the Ukraine with Poland. Now, civil and religious leaders from the Ukraine and Poland are working toward mutual forgiveness, becoming a shared culture. One of the initiatives to promote this is an award for those who contribute to that process. The leader of the Ukrainian Greek Catholic Church announced this year's 2 winners at the Vatican. The first is a congregation for Oriental churches.
The dicastery has embodied the idea of reconciliation between the Polish and Ukrainian people in the lives of the churches and people of Eastern Europe for the last 30 years.
The other winner is Vatican Radio. It's being recognized for inspiring bonds of unity between people.
I must say that the first time I heard Pope John Paul II's voice was on Vatican Radio. In the days of the clandestine church, we couldn't go to ceremonies in our churches. Every Sunday, we listened on our knees to the ceremony broadcast by Vatican Radio.
The award is a sculpture with two flowers bent over one another that grow from the same root. It encourages people to remember not only the bad things that happened in history, but also the good things which should construct the future.
And finally in the news, in honor of the month of the Rosary, we bring you a story about a museum in Washington State that, according to Ripley's Believe It or Not, houses the world's largest collection of rosaries. The Columbia Gorge Interpretive Center, located in southeastern Washington, houses a collection of some 4,000 rosaries. The display of rosaries was the life's work of the late Donald A. Brown of North Bonneville, and its origins came from a Mercy Hospital stay in North Bend, Oregon, when Brown was recovering from pneumonia. It was at the hospital that he observed the rosary being worn on the habits of the Sisters of Mercy. Later, Brown embraced the Catholic faith, and soon after that, the collection began in 1917. Some of the more notable rosaries in the collection are from President John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, Father Edward Flanagan of Boys Town fame, musician and television celebrity Lawrence Welk, Al Smith, the first Catholic to run for the office of president in 1928, and a rosary made by St. Lucia dos Santos, one of the Fatima visionaries. A perfect place to visit on this month of the Rosary if you happen to be in southeastern Washington State. Well, that's all the information we have for you this time. I'm Kevin Nelson. Don't forget, you can keep up to date on Catholic news throughout the week with Catholic Newsbreak right here on the Catholic TV network.